Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, Bahraini state-run television marks the first anniversary of the uprising there by reporting on uprisings elsewhere. Rupert Murdoch's media empire is turning on itself. Watch this corporate space. Social media, the old-school version. There's still room out there for graffiti. And it's a digital overload on our web video of the week. One by one, countries in North Africa and the Middle East have been marking the first anniversaries of being caught up in the Arab Spring. First, it was Tunisia, then Egypt. This week, we're looking at a government that survived, Bahrain's. The authorities there have gone to great lengths to control the media message. Last year, they locked out international news organizations, arrested local journalists and bloggers, and shut down the country's only real opposition newspaper. There were also accusations of torture, even murder. However, there are also some more subtle tactics in use. Western public relations firms have been hired to help massage the international news media. Social media, so instrumental in other uprisings, has proven to be a double-edged sword in Bahrain because of countermeasures launched by the government which have proven effective. Our starting point this week, Bahrain, and how a year into the uprisings, the media in all their forms remain a key battleground. BTV, Bahrain's state-run television channel, Tuesday, February 14th, a time for celebration. The channel and the country are marking an event, not the first anniversary of demonstrations in Manama, rather the 11th anniversary of the establishment of the Bahraini parliament, which looked more like a celebration of the royal family.
The state media in Bahrain almost wholeheartedly reflects one opinion, which is the government's opinion. It is almost like an Orwellian propaganda machine. When you switch your TV channel on, you'll still constantly see that image that revolves around the royal family and what they get up to all day and who they met with and who they sat down with. Normal Bahrainis are just not interested in that, and their voice is just not being heard through state media.
And what you saw on Bahrain TV tended to be these promos about how we are all one country and these sort of song and dance numbers showing the Bahraini king. They try to downplay, obviously, that there is any unrest in the country, and obviously everybody knows there is unrest. You can't live there and not be affected by it.
BTV has a 3 p.m. newscast.
Assalamu alaikum.
It's a 30-minute program. On the anniversary of the uprising, the first 24 minutes and 52 seconds of the show were devoted to stories about the Bahraini royal family. Then, and only then, the channel turned its attention to the Arab Spring. A 2.5-minute report on Syria. The head of the Bahraini Information Authority, a member of the royal family, said the coverage on state-run television reflected national priorities.
So I think that should have the priority of being celebrated, that 11 years ago we started up a parliamentary system. In terms of coverage, I think we have started with covering the events of the anniversary. However, the few hundred people who want to disrupt the population of Bahrain that consists of 1.2 million people has been covered in the print media, and I don't think it was a newsworthy item for the television.
So while international channels covered the political story, Bahraini TV simply ignored it. Not that the international channels had it easy. Al-Jazeera was among many news organizations refused entry into Bahrain.
The authorities have denied entry to many journalists from around the world.
Around the anniversary of the uprising, a lot of journalists have found themselves not able to get visas, officially because of too high volume of applicants. But I think there are two reasons. One is that the government doesn't want the world to see pictures of quite violent clashes. The other is that some people in the authorities think that the media actually gives greater incentives for protesters to protest, hoping that if journalists aren't there, protesters will keep more quiet.
And that's why the media strategy since the beginning was to limit the freedom for expression, to target local journalists so that they won't be able to do their job, and to limit giving visas to the international journalists to enter the country and report freely.
It's because they couldn't control the narrative this week. It's because the focus was going to be on the protesters. It was going to be on people trying to go back to Pearl Roundabout to mark the one-year anniversary of this uprising starting. And the government really hasn't even tried that much to redirect that focus.
I would say that's totally false. We have all the top news wires here and broadcast stations, a lot of them. We have about 15 to 20 on the ground as we speak at the moment. And there has been extensive coverage in the past couple of days of events in Bahrain. So we have nothing to hide. Actually, we have a good story to tell.
The Bahrainis have also targeted specific foreign media outlets to tell that story. The German magazine Der Spiegel published an interview with the king that, like the Vogue magazine interview last year with the Syrian First Lady, bore all of the hallmarks of a public relations offensive. According to information filed with the U.S. government, a half-dozen public relations or lobbying firms have been hired by the Bahraini government over the past year.
They're very aggressive in watching what is said about the Bahraini government in the media. There was an op-ed published in The Guardian last month criticizing Formula One's decision to return the Formula One race to Bahrain. That op-ed was pulled down within about 24 hours because The Guardian received a notice from one of these PR firms, basically pointing out inaccuracies in the piece and raising the specter of some kind of legal action.
Every time, for example, I publish an article in the foreign media, I get a barrage of emails to the editor and to myself responding to the arguments in the pieces that I write. And so I know that for a fact that they're there responding to any media output that is critical of the Bahraini regime, and most of the time it uses very intimidating and bullying tactics.
In a way, Western PR and lobbying firms are to the Bahraini power struggle what Blackwater and military contractors are to the conflict in Iraq. Outsiders, working for governments, often in the shadows of the story. And those firms no longer limit their focus to what occurs in the mainstream news media.
If you find like one page for people who are posting pro-democracy or pro-protest news, you will find tens of other Facebook pages or Twitter accounts posting other kinds of news on the opposite direction. So there was a social media war, and it's still going on actually, which is very interesting because it's very different than the strategies that have been used in other countries in the Arab region, such as Egypt and Syria.
There's a kind of more grey area. We know that some of the firms that the Bahraini government has hired to do its PR, such as Corvus and Bell Pottinger, have advertised to other clients services that would include creating a social media buzz around that client's message. So quite a lot of people suspect that some of the anonymous pro-government accounts are actually being run by paid PR agents.
That's Bahrain, 1 year on. The government is still in power. Most of the global media are on the outside looking in. The authorities are gaining ground in cyberspace. And on state-run television, it's all good. Our Global Village Voices now on the coverage of the story in Bahrain.
From the huge amount of money that Bahrain spends every single year on its PR, they attach a huge amount of importance to their image in the international media. The government has liked to stress time and time again that this is a sectarian divide in the country, that the real divide between the people in Bahrain is between Sunnis and Shias, and it's not about democracy and dictatorship, and of course that's what the people are really fighting for, democracy. So the government has been very successful in controlling events and controlling the official narrative.
Social media poses a significant threat to the Bahrain regime's ability to control its image. For it's a space where Bahrainis can subvert their highly censored national media, and it is a space that allows those outside Bahrain to bear witness. Because of this, the regime are keen to dissuade people from using social media.
We're always looking for new faces for the program. If you'd like to share your thoughts on the news media as one of our Global Village Voices, you can connect with us on Facebook or Twitter, where we will let you know what stories we're working on, or you can just get in touch with us the old-fashioned way on email. We're at listeningpost@aljazeera.net. And don't forget our free video podcast. It's on iTunes. Just go looking for the Listening Post, Al Jazeera English, and you will find us there. Time now for Listening Post News Bites. There are signs of an uncivil war brewing within the media empire of Rupert Murdoch. The latest development arises out of the arrests of 5 journalists at The Sun, the UK's largest selling paper. They are senior figures, including Deputy Editor Jeff Webster, Picture Editor John Edwards, and Chief Reporter John Kay. Associate Editor Trevor Kavanagh points the finger at the company's Management and Standards Committee, members of which he says are boasting that they are sending information to police that has put these people into police cells. Kavanagh also used a column that he wrote to complain that police are using heavy-handed tactics and dawn raids to make coordinated arrests. The Sun is getting no sympathy from opposition Member of Parliament Tom Watson, himself a one-time target of News Corp investigators. Watson said it is News International's behavior that is to blame. By deliberately lying to the police and trashing evidence, they have made the job far more complex and expensive than it should have been. Britain's BBC has broadcast an apology after airing a series of documentaries made by a London television company that was earning millions of pounds from PR clients which it was reporting on in its programming. The company, Fact-Based Communications, or FBC, made 8 documentaries on Malaysia, including one on the controversial palm oil industry. However, it failed to declare that it had been paid $26 million by the Malaysian government for global strategic communications. The BBC also aired an FBC documentary on the Egyptian uprising, but the company again failed to disclose it was doing PR work for Hosni Mubarak's government.
With the military now in charge, promising free and fair elections.
It was only after an investigation by the British newspaper The Independent last year that these relationships were exposed. The corporation issued its apology on its BBC World Channel.
Editorial integrity is the highest priority for BBC World News, which is why we apologise for these breaches of our normal standards.
The company involved, FBC Media, has since declared it has some serious money problems, and Britain's television regulator Ofcom is also part of the investigation. A Saudi blogger who used his Twitter account to post thoughts on the Prophet Muhammad will be facing trial amid calls for the death penalty. Hamza Kashgari caused outrage among many Saudis earlier this month when he tweeted an imaginary conversation with the Prophet saying he loved the rebel in you and that he loved some aspects of you, hated others. Kashgari then fled to Malaysia, where he was arrested and deported back home. The reaction in Saudi Arabian cyberspace has included mass calls for his execution, but a Facebook page has also been established to defend Kashgari. That may prove to be a dangerous move. Supporters could find themselves facing trial as well after the prosecuting lawyers said they were equally guilty under Saudi law. Saudi Arabian news consumers have been reliant on online news, social networking, and satellite television for their information, and media rules were tightened even further in the wake of the Arab Spring. Lawyers in the country are saying that while the death penalty is technically possible in this case, it is unlikely to come down to that. Fans of foreign soap operas in China are going to have to rethink their viewing habits. China's media regulator has announced that foreign television programs will no longer be aired during prime time. The State Administration of Radio, Film and Television has said that such programs cannot be aired between 7:30 and 10 p.m., cannot run beyond 50 episodes, and should comprise no more than 25% of programming each day. China's official newspaper has said these regulations are designed to protect domestic cultural products and help create a favorable environment for television shows made by companies on the Chinese mainland. Foreign programs will also require official approval before they go on the air, and they must not contain what is deemed to be violent or vulgar content. Stations that break the new rules could face severe punishments. This new legal landscape is all part of Beijing's recent cultural reforms, which include a ban on advertising during television dramas and a clampdown on light entertainment programs. Last month, President Hu Jintao announced that officials should remain vigilant against Western cultural influences. The term social media comes with some rather modern connotations. It's attached to computers, mobile devices, online experiences, in a wireless world. However, if you think about it, in an offline way, social media has been with us for centuries, even longer. Street art, graffiti predates television, radio, even the printing press. Yet it remains a powerful communications tool, one used to great effect, for instance, during the Arab uprisings. Street art is like a warning sign. It tends to appear and attract attention long before the politically active actually hit the streets. And when revolutions achieve their goals and governments fall, demonstrators go back to their homes, but the artists remain on the job, making the best of their newfound freedom of expression, hoping that it lasts. The Listening Post's Meenakshi Ravi now on the writing on the wall, the low-tech end of social media in the Arab world.
Scenes of an unsanctioned protest in Benghazi today.
Global media told the story of the Libyan revolution one way. Gaddafi's media told it another way. And the oldest media of them all, street art, was making its own quiet revolution in North Africa.
We were oppressed. We couldn't express our views. Nobody was allowed to paint on walls. Graffiti was something risky under Gaddafi. Creativity was stifled under him. Because of his tyrannical rule and arrogance, he always behaved as if he was the most important person on earth and the rest are but animals. He enjoyed being treated like a god.
Street art is really a place for art to be completely free out of any system, institution, putting artwork where no one asked them to do it, where it's really from their own beliefs.
Egypt, February 2011. President Mubarak pulled the plug on the internet, trying to kill the social media that was spurring the protesters.
The Egyptian government has stepped up its clampdown on the media and communication services.
Internet and cell phone communication had largely been shut down.
Egyptians went low-tech. They went to the walls to safeguard their revolution.
I think that the graffiti that appeared during the revolution and after the revolution was very poignant and very symbolic for the uprising in Tahrir. It was a direct reflection of people's statements of what they were trying to say. And it was integral because at a time when the internet was cut and then the phone lines were cut and there wasn't enough international media presence on the streets in Tahrir to cover the protests accurately, people took to the wall and they started writing messages on the wall. Street art spoke directly to the people, or was a medium that was directly for a person on the street.
Street art, graffiti particularly, functions as a reflection of the environment that the people who are creating it in. So it's almost as like a communication platform for the disenfranchised. You have a group of people who have no other way of communicating. You have a message that's being portrayed to everyone. This person was killed. Stop this other person from doing these things. That directly affects the environment that it's being placed in. So much in the way like Twitter today.
Street art has long thrived anywhere people have a political point to make. Long before Facebook, Germans were posting messages on their wall. At least those in West Berlin were. In Northern Ireland, the story of the sectarian troubles is told on murals that sprung up in the 1970s and remain to this day. The wall that divides the West Bank and Israel has become a wide canvas for artists who oppose segregation as well as Israeli policies. That's the enduring appeal of this communication form. Street art does not depend on technology, and potential message boards are everywhere.
What graffiti has done is raise awareness that there is another opinion, especially where mainstream media has managed to send a certain message. You have the streets saying something else.
It's a great way, basically, to show controversy, to show different ideas that are right there in the street that nobody can hide. You know, you can even forbid a paper to come out that day. If it's in the street, you have to go and paint it.
Street artist JR has taken his work beyond just painting. He is of French-Tunisian descent and combines photography with his wall art to highlight stories that go untold by the mainstream media. After the uprising in Tunisia, he went over to join the photographers and street artists there.
Tunisia was not a project I started. was a project that Tunisians started. Send me hundreds of photos and watch them struggling with images in their own country, because they've never seen street art in the, this way in the street of Tunisia. No one was aware that there could be a photo that was not a political message or an advertising. So the first time they started placing their own photos, everyone gathered in the street and was like, what is going on? Is this the new politicians? Who are those people? And it was really interesting discussion. The first time that they can interact with their own walls without being sued by their own state.
But one Arab revolutionary's street art is another Arab revolutionary's vandalism.
The problem that graffiti artists have now is not with the police or the government or anything like that. They actually have a problem with the civilians, with the people themselves. It's the people that will come up to an artist and question him and ask him. And sometimes it's very friendly. And sometimes it's hostile. You're ruining a public wall, how dare you? You're making it ugly. And so when graffiti comes in, it's seen as so aggressive and so different that sometimes the reaction is quite negative.
If you're coming from some place where you relate culturally much more to graffiti as a subculture, then it's going to be much easier for you to relate to the message inside the graffiti. If you are completely outside of that subculture, and you're going to perceive it as a foreign language, and you're immediately going to want to be removed from your environment because you're going to see it merely as vandalism.
But these are revolutionary times in the Arab world. And it's not just the political sphere going through change. Communications are seeing a revolution as well. Street art is part of that movement.
During all the revolution in the Arab world, what I've seen is tons of messages in the street from people, from like a tag in the street saying a political idea to someone doing a stencil, expressing a conviction or a message. And this kind of street art have helped people also to understand what was coming from the street. Because sometimes an image is much stronger than hundreds of words.
It's very diverse right now. You have graffiti that is pro-army, graffiti that's anti-SCAF, graffiti that's calling for another revolution, graffiti commemorating the dead. So there's a lot of messages out there. I think now the fear is gone with everything that's happened in Egypt. It's very hard to maintain the same fear barrier that we did before the revolution.
More Global Village Voices now on offline social media, street art.
The political street art that we saw in Libya during the end of the Gaddafi regime was significant and in no doubt aided the uprising. Now within these artworks we also see references to popular Western culture, and we also see text in both Arabic and English languages. The Libyan people were not just speaking to each other, but were conscious of wider global audiences. In our globalised digital age, these insurrectory messages could be transmitted from the streets and into the homes of millions of people worldwide.
Political street art is an alternative to state media or to any other media, and people who don't have an access to Facebook or Twitter, they use street interventions or political street art to deliver their message. If we put something on Facebook, it does go viral, but after some time it's not there. And let's take the murals for the martyrs. They're always there on the wall, and they're a constant reminder of the price of the revolution and of something that is important to remember.
And finally, ever had one of those multimedia moments? It's early in the day, but already your phone is ringing, texts are coming in, so are tweets, your inbox is overflowing, and someone is banging on the door. Information overload is exactly what inspired Chris Crutchfield to make Digitals. This little film is our web video of the week, and it's gone viral because, as the film says, we all live in an era where everyone is overloading everybody else. We'll see you next time at The Listening Post. English.